Hi everyone, Dalin Malna here. There's been something that's really been bothering me that I kind of want to put into a video to make sure that I've really solidified all my thoughts and that no one misunderstands me. Lately I've been talking with a lot of my friends about new remakes of games coming out, and we seem to be having this total disconnect. Either I'm simply not making myself clear, which I hope this video will solidify, or they're just not interested in understanding me. I really think it's probably the first, that I'm not making myself clear, and this video ought to solve that up so everyone can understand where I'm coming from, and we'll just work from there. So, the topic of today's discussion, as I'm sure you can see from the title, is objectively worse remakes of games. So, I've been talking with my friends lately about games like, not quite as recently, but the World Ends With You port to the Switch, Smash Ultimate coming out, and Pokemon Let's Go. And we consistently butt heads on this one particular issue, which is basically I'll state my point first. The idea that while it's okay to be excited for these games because, opinions and stuff, I think there's a reasonable argument to be made for people who aren't excited, who aren't hyped for these games, because they have objectively less content than either the thing they're remaking or, in Smash U case, an iterative sequel. So let me kind of go into detail first. The World Ends With You is probably the least controversial of this. It is just a port of the phone game. I'm sure they slightly up-res the pixels to move it from a phone to the Switch, but they had already kind of upped the assets for the phone game. And it boggles my mind because they effectively took out half the combat for this version of the game to work on a single screen. They added in one level, and then they charged $30 more than the phone version that this is a port of. And this one, people were actually a little bit upset about, thankfully. Some people were just happy to get another The World Ends With You thing, but most longtime fans seem to agree that this is an inferior port. That even though the visuals are up-resed a little bit, that it looks nicer, that the loss of gameplay and the huge price increase. That's literally double the port that it's based off of. And even the original DS game is $40. It is at least $10 more than the DS game it was based off of, and $30 more than the port of the DS game that this is actually ported from. This is a port of a port, effectively. And that's just bonkers, because this took less work, obviously, than even the port, because you had to create the single-player mode and revamp everything, so that phone version that was $20 cheaper, it was $20 cheaper than the original, actually took more work than this $50 version, which was effectively just a copy-paste job. I know there's more to it than that, but thankfully, people were rightfully upset about that. They're like, look, I think most people had the correct response to The World Ends With You, and that's why I'm starting here. Which is, look, I'm happy to get anything from this franchise. I love it so much, and it's great to have it on a more modern console. But this is objectively worse. We still like it, and I think that's an okay opinion. You could say, look, I understand that looking at this from a numbers perspective, looking at what was taken, what was gained, that we lost half the gameplay and we gained a level, this is a downgrade, and we understand that. But we still like the game. No one's going to be mad at you for just having an opinion. Where I get frustrated and where I start butting heads with people is when they start pretending that these objective, measurable differences don't exist. And that's where I get into Smash U and Pokemon Let's Go. So, looking at Smash U, I've talked about to death. I've already mentioned that they've effectively ripped out every single extra mode. You can go watch my other videos if you want to see what I was talking about there. One small correction is that Classic mode isn't quite as bad as I thought. It has been reverted to N64 version, which is a slight upgrade from the Wii U and 3DS version of Classic mode. But it's still worse than Brawl or Melee. And that's what really boggles my mind, is Smash U I think Smash U is going to be great, because I think the core of Smash is so good that even if you take away all the extra stuff that I love, that makes it more than just a fighting game, it's still going to be a great game. And I think we could admit that. We could say, look, we're getting objectively less stuff in this game than others. We're getting some old copy-pasted characters, we're getting a bunch of old stages, and a few new things tossed in. This is a Mario Kart Ultimate situation where we're getting some of the DLC from the last game thrown in for free, and we're getting, it looks a little bit nicer, runs a little bit better. There's some small changes. That's great. And I think we can look at that, and if we looked at it from that perspective and said, maybe they took out a bunch of stuff. Actually, I could even argue Mario Kart Ultimate would have been a better comparison, because they didn't remove modes, they added modes. But I digress. The point is, we could say, look, they took out everything but the core fighting, but they polished it up and made that core fighting real nice, and that's all I care about. If people said that, and I have one friend who said that, and I'm okay with that. They said, look, I just don't care about the other crap. I just want it to be a fighting game. I think that's fine. That's a fine opinion to have. I think it's going to be a great fighting game. What bothers me is when people go, like, they're like, nah, man, like, they didn't remove anything. This is more content than ever. I'm like, they took out trophies. They turned All-Star mode into just endless mode. They removed I already said trophy. They removed break the targets. They removed all the little extra mini games. They removed adventure mode. And then they added in the light, the World of Light thing. And you know what? I would say this is wrong completely to call it an adventure mode, because it is literally just events mode, which I've said 1,000 times, and it is mechanically identical to events mode. There is no difference at all. They literally just slapped a cutscene and a different name on it, and like that is it. So, but you know what? Let's even be nice and say that this is an adventure mode. I would say it is an objectively downgraded adventure mode from any previous adventure mode, because there is nothing but versus matches. And if we want to say that, I was trying to be kind and say, you know what? Basically, Master Order, Crazy Order, and Event Mode still exist in World of Light. But you know what? You want to do that? Fine. I'm going to instead say, if we want to call it adventure mode, let's call it adventure mode. You're wrong, but let's call it adventure mode. And then we lost events, we lost Master Orders, and Crazy Orders. We've now lost 3 modes instead of just the 1. I still think that makes it actually worse. I think it's kinder to say that they wrapped those 3 modes into 1 mode, because it basically says they still exist. But if you want to say this is adventure mode, then this replaces adventure mode, and we haven't lost adventure mode. It's just a worse version than any version in any Smash game we've ever had. and we lost events mode, and we lost Master Order, and we lost Crazy Order. No matter how you look at it, no matter how you try to spin it, there is less content here. Less content added than any other. There's more content that is just recycled. It has more content than any other Smash in terms of versus mode, but most of that is because they recycled stuff from older games. Which is fine. I still think it's going to be good. I think we can look at this and say, you know what? There is less content than normal. This is a smaller... We got a few new fighters and that's it. That's all I want. And I think that's fair to say. You can say, I don't really like that other stuff. They really focused on what I wanted and cut away the fat. You could say that, and that's fine. I'm getting frustrated with people who are saying that there is still objectively more content being added than in the Smash, which just isn't true. You compare the amount of modes and interesting content of Smash Ultimate to even Smash U, which I didn't just love, but especially if you can compare it to Brawl or Melee, and it's just, there's no comparison. And I've talked that one to death, but so I think the right way to approach that is just to say, you can still like it, but I think you can say, look, I just didn't care about the other stuff. They focused on what I wanted, and I'm happy. That's a fair argument. Say, no, man, this is more stuff than ever before, I think is just dishonest. I think you're either blinded by hype or I don't know what's going on, but I don't know how you can look at the amount of modes and say that there's more here than ever, because they're just, like, by the numbers is not. I've broken that down in the other videos. You can go watch them again, but it just, if you look at the numbers, if you look at the objective amount of modes, it is not the same. There is less here than there was before. So, putting that to one side, the final thing I want to talk about is Pokemon Let's Go, which really bothers me. So, I was talking with someone else, and I just said, look, I can't get behind this, because all Pokemon Let's Go is they removed a bunch of features and then charged more for it than they ever have. This is the 3rd time this game has been remade. If you count Yellow as the same versions. Arguably more, if you count Yellow as sort of a remake. Because this is kind of a remake of Yellow, which was kind of an enhanced port of Red and Blue. But just counting as a Red and Blue and just counting all the generations, let's say it's the 3rd major remake. And what do you gain with Pokemon Yellow? You gain slightly nicer visuals in the 3DS. I'm not a fan of the art style. I really just think it looks like, kind of, like I said, a lazy up-res of the 3DS art style. And I get, because someone got really mad because they're like, obviously there are more pixels, it wasn't just up-resed. And I understand that on a technical level, there is more done to these models than up-resing. I understand that. What I'm saying is that the artistic style does not take advantage of the system's power to the point that it looks very similar to what I would just imagine a slightly polished version of the 3DS visuals. I understand that they took brand new models and probably made them from scratch. What I'm saying is they were so uninspired with the art style that it looks very similar to the 3DS. 3DS versions look fine because they're working with very limited hardware. The Switch has the ability to make much better looking models, and they are not. And I've said before, I think they look slightly better than the GameCube and slightly worse than the Wii models from like the Coliseum games, basically, Stadium games. and someone's like, well, obviously there's more pixels. I understand that. I want to make myself very, very clear. I am not saying there are fewer polys or pixels or whatever have you. I know it's polys in this game. What I am saying is that the art style is so uninspired that I think the Wii version looks better despite being on worse hardware. That the way that they used their hardware looks better than the way the Switch is using its hardware. I do not like the way the characters look in this. I understand that there are more polys on the models. I think that they look worse despite that. I want to make myself perfectly clear, so there's no confusion. So you get arguably a better art style. Let's even be kind and say this is the best Pokemon's ever look. I would really fight that on that, but that's an opinion. That's not something you object. So let's say you get a better art style. You lose random battles. You lose... Catching is arguably less complex. That's again a kind of a not necessarily objective, but it's certainly not more complex. So catching Pokemon is now, even if we say it's unchanged to negatively impacted to be less complex. You lose again you can only battle certain trainers. You cannot do weird team combinations in gyms now. You have to go in with a weakness. It forces you to. All these things. And what does Yellow add? It adds a co-op mode, which I guess that's something. It adds... I'm blanking on what it adds. They follow you, which was already done in Pokemon, the 4th gen Pokemon games, Soul Silver and whatever the Heart Gold. So it adds, quote unquote, that, which is again just a recycled content. They made new models. That's great, I guess. But again, I'm not a fan of this art style, so I would argue they don't look as good as like the 4-frame pixels that were following you in Heart Gold, Soul Silver. But whatever, that's fine. So let's say that these are all good things that they have added. That they have added Pokemon following you and co-op mode. Okay, let's say that's what they've added. They're charging $40 more for that, and they've taken out so much. They've taken out all the random battles. They've taken out the challenge out of searching for Pokemon. The frigging red, fire red and leaf green versions, which again were cheaper when they came out brand new, and I would again argue look way better. Just the sprite art looks so good in those games. Those versions that were $20 cheaper and were portable too, so you can't argue that there's even portability isn't even added to this. Had all the Pokemon from the other gens mixed in as well that you could go get and trade with in other versions and in-game content. This does not have that. They took out hundreds of Pokemon compared to even the last remake of this game. They have taken out all the random battles. They have taken out strategy out of battling. What do you gain from this? I don't understand. Now, if people said, you know what, I'm just happy to have Pokemon. I don't care what it is. Anything with Pokemon I enjoy because I just enjoy the world. I think that's a fair argument. You can say, you know what, price of admission, I understand that this is objectively has less content than the last version of this game, Fire Red and Leaf Green. That there are fewer things to do, and that a lot of the mechanics have been stripped out. But I just like the atmosphere, and the fact that I can experience it again on my newest system, because and there's some slight changes here or there, that's worth the price of admission to me. That is a fair thing to say. Or you can even say, I haven't played the older versions, and even if they're better, I just don't have access to a Game Boy. There's no real easy way to play it. This is the easiest way to play it for me. That is fine. To the people saying that, no, this is the best this version of this game has ever been, I just don't understand that. What do you gain? Is co-op mode? The co-op, you can't even co-op bad. It's just co-op like flicking the ball or something at the same time. It's ridiculous, but is flicking the Pokeball at the same time as your friend worth $20 extra compared to the older version? And that was when it came out brand new. You can get Fire Red and Leaf Green for dirt cheap now. Is that worth that to you? I don't understand. I'm trying to understand. So all that to say, but this is not me saying, oh, all remakes are bad, because I want to talk about there are amazing remakes. There are amazing iterative games. I love them. I've got 8 on my list of legendary games, including Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green. That's a legendary game to me. Dissidia 012 Final Fantasy, which was an iterative sequel, but also contained the entire last game in it. That's amazing. Metroid Zero Mission friggin' completely revamps everything that was kind of wrong about Metroid. It's just an objectively better remake with double the content. It's amazing. Super Smash Bros. Brawl had more content in it than any Smash Bros. Before it, with just the amount of modes and things like that. I understand that Versus, you know, in the Versus mode, that Ultimate has it beat, but like, just, oh my gosh, just the amount of content in that game. Fire Emblem Echoes Shadows of Valentia completely reimagined it, but kept true to the spirit and added so much dang content. Final Fantasy IV had 2 remakes, both of them in wildly different directions, that added so much content to the original series. And of course, one of my favorite games of all time, the Resident Evil remake, which just adds everything the original game had and just polishes it up and adds new things to do and more to tackle, and it's just brilliant. I just wish we had a little bit more expectations in our remakes. I feel like there's kind of this mentality of, oh, it's the thing I love, and there's a new version of it, and I just love it because it's a new version. And I don't want to get down on anyone's parade. I want people to be happy because the thing they like is coming out. I really genuinely hope people enjoy all 3 of these games. I hope they get joy out of them. I hope it brings new people to the franchise, all that stuff. Where I get frustrated, where I get agitated, is the idea that when someone says, you know what, I played the older versions of these, and it's not one of those things where you say, I played the older versions of these, and I think this is worse. And it's not, because there's some places where you can look at things and go, you know what, some questionable decisions. A lot of people are kind of torn on the Majora's Mask remake. That made a few tweaks on the 3DS, and people are like, I think the 64 is the not definitive version, yada yada. That's fine. I think there's room for matters of opinion. Where I get frustrated, where I get like, why are people not seeing this, is when I go, here are like 14 things they removed, and they added in 2. This game has less than the original. It is not, it's not an enhanced remake, it's a port missing features. And if people go, yeah, I don't care, the core is so good that it's fine. When people go, no, this one's objectively better. I'm like, but like, here's the list of things they removed. And they're like, they didn't remove those. And I'm like, but they did! They're missing! They are not in the game anymore. They used to be in the game, and now they are not. They are charging more for a product that has less in it. And it's not one of those like, because again, there's things where you go, oh, this should be in the game. You know, like, I like this game, but it should be open world. That's different. I'm not talking about like a hypothetical where I don't know what it would take to add this in. I'm talking, this is a remake of a game that had these features in. These features were removed. More features were removed than were added. And then they're charging more. And I'm going, you know, I'm not okay with that. I'm not okay with that. And people I'm fine. Again, people can say, you know what? I agree, that's kind of crappy. They're removing some stuff, but it's worth. I'm still getting my money's worth out of this. Where I get frustrated is people saying that no, they didn't remove that when they objectively did. This is not a matter of opinion, and that frustrates me. What is a matter of opinion is it worth the price of admission? You could say, you know what? $60 for a gimped port of Pokemon Yellow because it's got nicer graphics. That's worth it to me. That's fine. Where I get frustrated is when people go, no, this one's objectively better because it has fewer things. I don't understand. I will not understand this mindset. I don't get it. I've rambled on too long. This is probably the most negative thing I've done for a while. I'm done. I've been ragging on all the stuff. I want to talk about stuff that I'm actually excited about next. I want to get back into games that I like. I just am frustrated when I feel like I'm talking with people who are just seeing the world in an entirely different way. You know, there's no accounting for taste. There's no accounting for opinions. People like stuff I won't. I think that's great. I think that's what makes the world interesting. I love hearing why. Where I get frustrated is when we can't agree on objective facts, when we can't look at the list of things that are removed from a game and say, this has fewer features. And I'm fine when people go, yeah, it's got fewer features, but that doesn't matter to me. What's there is great. And that's a fair argument. I can understand. That is a point I can comprehend. What I don't get is when they go, no, it doesn't. I'm like, can you show me? I have a list of things they've removed. Can you show me why those aren't removed? And they just go, it's not removed. I'm like, but it is. And I feel like I'm being gaslit, honestly. And so that's what's been on my mind lately. I am going to focus on some fun stuff. We're going to talk about some fun games after this and stop all the just crapping on games. There's some stuff I'm really excited about. I want to talk about all sorts of games. I want to talk about Sonic. I want to talk about Mega Man and maybe Resident Evil. Thanks so much for listening to my rant. Please feel free to comment and just forgive my craziness that's been bottled up inside me for about a week. Just got done with like a crazy work week, and I've been wanting to talk about that forever, and it's been frustrating me, and I got it off my chest. So, thank you very much. Hope you have a blessed day. My name's Dalin Malna. See you next time.